Under the sparkling light of the crystal chandeliers hanging high from the ceiling of La Stella restaurant, in the heart of London's Mayfair district, Lily Harper stood behind the polished mahogany bar, wiping a wine glass for the fourth time in 10 minutes. Her hands, though accustomed to handling trays and glassware over 4 years of waitressing in her hometown of Yorkshire, still trembled slightly. Not from fatigue, her shift had only started 3 hours ago, but from an electric jolt that ran down her spine every time she sensed James Cavendish's gaze from his usual corner table. La Stella was not just a restaurant, it was an icon, with oak-paneled walls, tables covered in pristine white silk linens, and a menu that changed weekly, crafted by a Michelin-starred chef. It was the destination for London's elite, movie stars, powerful businessmen, and those willing to spend £200 on a dinner. Lily, 26 years old, with her brown hair tied neatly and bright green eyes, was still unaccustomed to this luxury. She had arrived in London just 6 weeks earlier, carrying an old suitcase, £500 in savings, and a dream of escaping the small town in Yorkshire where she grew up in a cottage with her mother, Anne, a supermarket employee. 2 weeks working at La Stella had taught her more than 4 years at the local pub back home. The rules here were as strict as a ballet performance. Every glass had to be placed precisely, every smile just friendly enough but not too familiar, and any mistake, no matter how small, could lead to consequences. But what stressed Lily the most was not the complex menu or the demanding guests. It was James Cavendish, the man sitting at table number 8, in the most secluded corner of the restaurant, where the chandelier light barely illuminated his angular face. James, 35 years old, was Britain's youngest billionaire, inheriting the Cavendish Hospitality Group empire from his father at age 27. In 8 years, he had expanded that empire from 5 restaurants in London to a chain of 25, spanning from Paris to Dubai. The press called him the Ice King of the culinary world for his cold and precise business demeanor. Tonight, as every Friday at exactly 8 o'clock, James entered La Stella in a perfectly tailored gray suit, without a single crease or stray hair. He always sat alone, with a glass of single malt whiskey beside him, his deep blue eyes scanning the restaurant like a laser scanner, noting every detail: a glass placed off-center, a server moving too slowly, or a diner laughing too loudly. Lily tried to focus on her work, polishing glasses, arranging napkins, checking the red wine bottles breathing on the shelf, but her eyes kept drifting unconsciously toward James. There was something about Chaim that she couldn't look away from. Not just his appearance, the neatly combed black hair, the strong jaw, or the way he sat straight-backed as if the whole world awaited his command. But the strange loneliness that emanated from Chaim. Even though he sat in a packed restaurant, James didn't talk to anyone, didn't smile, didn't check his phone like other guests. He only observed, as if searching for a mistake to correct. "Don't look at him anymore," Sarah, a veteran server with high-tied blonde hair, whispered as she passed the bar. Sarah, 40 years old, had worked at La Stella since it opened 10 years ago and was the only one who dared speak frankly to Lily. "Cavendish sees everything. You don't want to be noticed." Lily blushed, quickly bowing her head over the glass in her hand. "I'm not looking. Just checking if he needs anything." Sarah smirked, but her eyes softened. "Everyone looks at first. He's handsome, powerful, and scary as hell. But trust me, Lily, don't let Chaim notice you. Last month, he fired a bartender for pouring whiskey in the wrong ratio. Another chef was let go for letting an appetizer cool for 2 minutes. He doesn't forgive." Lily nodded, but her heart still raced. She had heard the stories about James, how he built his empire from his father's ashes, how he worked 18 hours a day, how he never let anyone get close. But she had also heard other whispers that James once had a girlfriend, a famous journalist, but they broke up after a year because he was too controlling, that he slept no more than 4 hours a night, that he kept an old photo of his father in his wallet, but no one had ever seen him open it. The night continued with La Stella's familiar rhythm. Servers glided like dancers, carrying silver trays with exquisite dishes, seared scallops with saffron sauce, Wagyu beef grilled with rosemary, or tiramisu infused with 30-year-old whiskey. Lily moved between the bar and the tables, pouring wine, answering questions about the origin of the brie cheese, and trying not to glance at table number 8. But every time she peeked, James was still there, motionless, like a statue, his eyes seemingly always finding her in the crowd. At 9:30, a server placed the main course in front of James, grilled cod with lemon butter sauce and truffle mashed potatoes, priced at £50. Lily watched from afar, noting how James gave a brief nod, signaling the server to leave. He picked up his fork, cutting the fish with the precision of a surgeon, every movement exuding absolute control. Then, like a miracle no one expected, something strange happened. James' head nodded slightly, just a bit, as if reviewing a document in his mind. His hand relaxed on the fork, hovering over the plate. His eyelids closed, and for a few seconds, his breathing became steady and deep. James Cavendish, the man who never slept, who never revealed a moment of weakness, had dozed off right at the dining table, in the middle of his own most luxurious restaurant. The entire La Stella seemed to freeze. A server dropped a spoon, making a small clink that startled everyone. Sarah stood frozen on the floor, her tray of red wine slightly tilting. A young kitchen assistant whispered from the kitchen door, "Should we wake him?" "Are you crazy?" Sarah replied, her voice low but urgent. "If he wants to sleep, let him sleep. Don't touch him unless you want to lose your job." But Lily didn't hear those whispers. Her eyes were glued to something else on James' table, half hidden by his dangling arm, a black leather money clip, revealing a thick stack of 50-pound notes. Under the chandelier light, she could see at least 5,000 pounds, perhaps more, lying exposed in a public restaurant. Lily's heart pounded. James Cavendish was never careless. The man who controlled every millimeter of wine in a glass couldn't leave money out like that. This wasn't negligence. This was a trap. The atmosphere in La Stella was already tense as a wire. But when James Cavendish dozed off at table number 8, the entire restaurant seemed to fall into a strange silence, as if someone had pressed pause on a perfect symphony. The clinking of wine glasses, the soft laughter of diners, the light footsteps of servers all suddenly became distant, drowned out by the steady, deep breathing of the most powerful man in the room, Lily Harper, standing behind the bar with a crumpled cloth in her hand, felt her throat go dry. She couldn't tear her eyes away from James, even though reason told her that staring too long was a mistake. James sat there, his head slightly tilted forward, his black hair slightly disheveled, a small detail, but unbelievable for someone who always appeared as if stepping out of a fashion magazine. His right arm dangled beside the grilled cod plate, the silver fork gleaming suspended in mid-air, as if Time had frozen the moment he lost control. His deep blue eyes, usually sharp as knives, were now hidden behind long lashes, and his face, often tense with strong features, looked younger, more approachable, almost vulnerable. Lily felt a strange ache in her chest, an urge to protect this man, even though she knew he was the last person on earth who needed protection. The restaurant wasn't completely silent. At a table near the window, A woman in a red silk dress whispered to her companion, her eyes glancing at James before quickly looking away. A businessman at table number 5 stopped typing on his tablet, looking up with unconcealed curiosity. But the most noticeable reaction came from Lastella's own staff. Sarah, the veteran server, stood frozen in the middle of the floor, her red wine tray slightly tilting, a drop of wine falling onto the white silk tablecloth without anyone daring to point it out. Sarah's face paled, her brown eyes wide open, as if she had just witnessed a shooting star falling in the middle of London. From the kitchen door, the young kitchen assistant named Tom, only 19 and still nervous when serving desserts, poked his head out, whispering to a colleague, "What's going on? Is Mr. Cavendish really asleep?" "Shut up, idiot," the chef replied, his voice low but urgent, pulling Tom back into the kitchen. "Don't let him hear you. And don't touch Chaim unless you want to be fired immediately." Sarah finally regained her composure, setting the wine tray down on an empty table and quickly walking toward the bar where Lily stood like a statue. "Did you see what just happened?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling but trying to maintain professionalism. "He's never done that. Never. James Cavendish doesn't sleep in public. He doesn't even blink for more than 5 seconds." Lily nodded slowly, but her eyes didn't leave table number 8. "Something's not right. James isn't the type to reveal flaws, even the smallest ones." She remembered the story Sarah told last week. A restaurant manager in Paris fired for letting a guest wait 3 extra minutes for a seat. James had flown to Paris just to personally deliver the decision. That man never let he himself fall into a state of lost control, especially not at Lastella, where he owned everything from the silver spoon to the oil painting on the wall. So why was he dozing off in the middle of a meal, in a completely unguarded posture? Then Lily saw it, half hidden under James' dangling arm. On the white silk tablecloth was a black leather money clip, the kind wealthy gentlemen use instead of a wallet. The clip was slightly open, revealing a neat but thick stack of crisp 50-pound notes. Under the chandelier light, the Bank of England lettering gleamed, and Lily quickly estimated at least 5,000 pounds, maybe more. The money lay there, exposed, easily taken by any server, diner, or even a thief slipping in from the back door. Lily's heart pounded, a sense of unease spreading through her. James Cavendish wasn't careless. He wouldn't forget a pen, let alone thousands of pounds in the middle of his own restaurant. She scanned the room, and her heart nearly stopped when she realized what was happening. At table number 6, a middle-aged man in a gray suit, clearly a businessman, was whispering to his companion, a young woman with shimmering blonde hair. Both kept glancing at the money clip, their eyes lighting up with unconcealed curiosity. The man even leaned forward, as if calculating the distance from his seat to James' table. At the bar, a drunk diner who had consumed too much whiskey was mumbling to his friend, pointing at James and laughing loudly, his voice loud enough for a few nearby people to turn and look. "Sarah," Lily whispered, her voice hoarse, "do you see the money clip? It's right there. Anyone can see it." Sarah followed Lily's pointing hand, and her face immediately changed. "Oh God," she muttered, her hand unconsciously gripping the edge of the bar. "That's not negligence. He's testing us." "Testing," Lily repeated, though deep down she was starting to suspect the same. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice low but urgent. "I heard he did it once in a restaurant in Manchester, left a Rolex watch on the table in the men's bathroom, then waited to see if staff would bring it to the manager or keep it. 3 people were fired that day. This is his game, Lily, a loyalty test." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. If Sarah was right, Then every glance in the restaurant, every staff action, was being observed by James, even if he appeared to be sound asleep. But if he was truly asleep, if this was a rare moment he let his guard down, then leaving the money exposed like that was a deadly mistake. Part of Lily wanted to believe James wasn't cruel enough to set traps for his own staff, that he was just an exhausted man needing a minute's rest. But the more realistic part reminded her of the horror stories. Staff fired for minor errors, contracts cancelled for a minute's delay. James Cavendish left no room for mistakes. She looked back at table number 8. James was still motionless, breathing steadily, but something in his posture made Lily doubt. His shoulders were slightly tilted, not completely natural, as if he was intentionally holding an angle to observe through the slit of his lashes. The money clip was placed in a perfect position, close enough for any passing server to see, but far enough that no one would accidentally touch it. This wasn't negligence. This was a trap, set with the precision of a chess player. But then, Lily's eyes caught the couple at table number 6 again. The man was now standing, pretending to pass James' table on the way to the bathroom, but his steps slowed, his gaze fixed on the money clip. Lily felt a surge of adrenaline. If this was a test, then not only were the staff being challenged, James was putting himself at real risk too. An unscrupulous diner, a moment of lost vigilance, and 5,000 pounds could disappear forever, or worse. James' reputation, Lastellas, could be ruined in one night. "Sarah," Lily whispered, her voice trembling but determined. "If this is a test, then he's risking too much. And if he's really asleep, then we can't leave the money there." Sarah grabbed Lily's wrist, her nails digging into the skin. "Don't, Lily. You've only been here 2 weeks. Don't be foolish. If he wakes up and sees you touching his things, you'll be fired immediately. Or worse. Hell, call the police." But Lily wasn't listening. She had made her decision, even though reason was screaming that she was destroying her future. She set the cloth down on the bar, took a deep breath, and stepped out of her safe zone, heading toward table number 8. Each step felt like 1,000 pounds, her high heels echoing on the wooden floor, mingling with the pounding of her heart in her chest. She didn't know if she was walking into a test, an opportunity, or a mistake that would change her life forever. But she knew one thing. She couldn't stand by and let something bad happen, whether to James or to her own self-respect. Lily Harper felt each step as if treading on a floor full of thorns. Every click of her high heels on Lastellas restaurant floor, a declaration that she was crossing an invisible line. The restaurant, already strangely silent since James Cavendish dozed off, now seemed to hold its breath completely. The crystal chandelier light shone down, creating sparkling circles on the white silk tablecloths. But to Lily, everything was just a blurry tunnel leading straight to table number 8. She knew she was doing something dangerous, touching James' belongings. The man who could ruin her career with a nod, but she couldn't stop. The black leather money clip, with its stack of 50-pound notes exposed like a challenge, lay there, too accessible, too easy to take. Lily's heart pounded so hard she feared it would echo in the restaurant's silent space. She glanced quickly at the couple at table number 6. The middle-aged man, with eyes sharp as knives, was now fully standing, pretending to adjust his tie, but deliberately slowing his steps to pass James' table. Lily recognized his intent. Immediately, a quick reach, a moment of lost vigilance, and 5,000 pounds would vanish. She couldn't let that happen. Not to James, not at Lastella, and certainly not when she could prevent it. She walked faster, trying to keep it natural, as if just checking the table. But each step was heavy, as if carrying the weight of her London dream that she had bet everything on. Just 6 weeks ago, she was in Yorkshire, working at the Red Lion pub, where customers called her Harper Girl and tipped her a few coins for a pint. Now, she was in the heart of Mayfair, facing a decision that could cost her everything: the job, rent money, and the chance to prove she belonged in this city. As she neared table number 8, only a few steps away, Lily sensed the eyes of the entire restaurant on her, though no one dared speak. Sarah, near the bar, clutched the edge of her black blouse, her brown eyes wide with warning. Tom, the kitchen assistant, poked his head from the kitchen door, mouth agape, as if to shout, but pulled back by a colleague. A diner at table number 3, an elderly woman with a sparkling pearl necklace, stopped sipping her champagne, watching Lily with unconcealed curiosity. They all knew something was about to happen, and they all knew the price of interfering in James Cavendish's world. Lily stopped beside James' table, less than a meter away. For the first time, she saw Chaim up close, under the chandelier light. His face looked different from the cold image she saw from afar. The strong features were still there, the square jaw, thick eyebrows, and straight nose. But there was an unexpected softness in sleep. His long lashes fluttered slightly, as if dreaming, and a lock of black hair fell over his forehead, making Chaim look younger than 35. Lily felt a strange pang in her chest, a weird urge to protect this man, even though she knew he was the last person who needed it. But the money clip was still there, like a dangerous invitation, and she couldn't let it remain exposed. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the tremor in her hands. Just quickly. Take it. Bring it to the bar. Lock it in the safe. No one needs to know. She leaned in, carefully avoiding Jamis' dangling arm, and reached for the money clip. Her fingers, cold from tension, just touched the soft leather of the clip, feeling the thickness of the stack inside. She gripped it, preparing to lift it, when a voice rang out, cold and sharp as a knife cutting through the air. "What are you doing?" Lily startled, nearly dropping the money clip. Her head snapped up, and she saw James Cavendish's deep blue eyes staring straight at her. No trace of sleep. No drowsy gaze. No slowness of someone just waking. Only absolute alertness, sharp enough to make her feel stripped of every thought. Those eyes weren't angry. Not yet. But they were evaluating, analyzing, and judging her in an instant. She realized immediately he wasn't asleep. Every steady breath, every head tilt, every disheveled lock, all a perfectly staged act. The money clip wasn't negligence. It was bait. And she, with all her innocence and instinct, had walked straight into the trap. Lily stood frozen, hand still gripping the money clip, neither daring to release nor hold. Her mouth was dry, her mind spinning for an explanation. The restaurant, already silent, now felt like a graveyard. Sarah covered her mouth, eyes wide in panic. Tom disappeared behind the kitchen door. The couple at table number 6 stopped whispering, their eyes shifting from the money clip to Lily, as if watching a tragedy about to reach its climax. Lily started, her voice so small it was almost inaudible. She swallowed hard, trying to regain composure. "I saw the money exposed. Sir, someone was looking. Table number 6. I was going to take it to the bar. Keep it safe until you woke up." James sat up straight, his movements smooth and powerful, like a leopard emerging from rest. He was taller than she, I imagined, at least 90 meters, and when he stood, Lily felt herself shrink under his shadow. His gray suit had no creases, as if he hadn't slept a second. His eyes locked on her, unblinking, unrelenting. and Lily felt the weight of his judgment in every second of silence. "You say you were going to keep it safe." Jameis' voice was low, but every word sharp as a blade. "By picking it up without my permission." Lily placed the money clip back on the table, her hand trembling so much she had to clench it to hide. "No, sir, I wasn't going to take it. I swear, I just didn't want anyone else to. I saw them looking, and I thought—" She stopped, realizing she was saying too much, too fast, and every word made her sound guiltier. James tilted his head, a small but calculated gesture. "What did you think, Miss Harper?" He emphasized her name, as if he had known about her all along. "That I was careless enough to leave £5,000 exposed, or that you had the right to interfere with my property." Every eye in the restaurant was now on Lily. She felt their heat, like arrows piercing her back. Sarah shook her head slightly, as if saying, "You're done." A diner at table number 4 whispered to his companion, and though Lily couldn't hear clearly, she knew they were talking about her. Her face burned, not from embarrassment, but from the rising injustice in her chest. She had tried to do the right thing, and now she was being treated like a thief. "You're fired," James said, his voice flat, emotionless. He stood tall and overwhelming, his eyes never leaving her. "Pack your things and leave. HR will send your final paycheck." Those words hit Lily like a punch to the chest. She had known it was coming, from the moment James opened his eyes, but hearing it still stunned her. 2 weeks of hard work, nights memorizing the menu, hours standing until her feet ached, all vanished in a second. Her London dream, the small apartment she shared with a roommate, the £30 left in her wallet, everything suddenly felt fragile as a glass about to shatter. "This isn't fair," Lily heard herself say, her voice stronger than she expected, though trembling at the end. "I wasn't going to steal. I was trying to protect you." James raised an eyebrow, a small gesture enough to make the entire restaurant hold its breath. "Protect me," he repeated, his voice now laced with sarcasm. "Miss Harper, you're a new employee. How long have you worked?" 2 weeks. "And you think you have the right to decide for me?" Lily clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, to explain that she wasn't stupid, that she had seen the couple at table number 6, that she knew it was a test but acted anyway because she couldn't stand by. But she knew anything she said now would be useless. James had made his judgment, and at La Stella, his judgment was law. "Pack your things," James repeated, his voice colder than ice. "Don't make me call security." Lily looked at him, searching for a sign, any sign that he understood her intent, but his face was a steel wall, unmoving. She untied her black apron, folded it with trembling hands, and placed it on a nearby chair. "I hope, one day," she said, her voice low but clear, "you'll realize that not everyone wants to hurt you." She turned away, head held high, refusing to let anyone see the tears welling up. The click of her high heels echoed on the wooden floor, each step a farewell to the dream she had bet everything on. Behind her, the restaurant gradually returned to life, the clinking of wine glasses, the whispers of diners, but Lily knew this moment would follow her forever. She had tried to do the right thing, and she had paid the price. Lily Harper stepped out the side door of La Stella, leaving behind the sparkling chandelier light and the whispers of elite diners. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind her, the echo, like a final hammer, nailing the coffin of her London dream. November night in Mayfair was bitterly cold, wind whipping through the cobblestone streets. Carrying the breath of approaching winter, Lily pulled her thin coat tight, the only thing she grabbed from the staff locker before leaving, but it wasn't enough to stop the chill seeping into her bones. Or perhaps the real cold came from within, from the emptiness, as everything she had tried to build in 6 weeks vanished in a moment. She stood still on the sidewalk, the orange streetlight casting down on her disheveled brown hair, creating long shadows on the pavement. In her pocket, she had only £30, a phone with 15% battery, and an expired subway ticket. The small apartment she shared with Mia, a medical student on night shifts, was in Camden, 3 two-blinds and 40 minutes away. Rent, £600 a month, was due in 25 days. Lily calculated quickly in her head. With her current money, she couldn't even afford a round-trip ticket back to Yorkshire, where her mother, Anne, was still working at the supermarket on a meager wage. The thought of returning, facing her mother's disappointed eyes, made Lily's throat tighten. She had promised to make it in London. She had promised not to fail. She started walking, aimlessly, just to keep her feet from freezing and her mind from spiraling into self-blame. Mayfair at night was a different world. High-end fashion stores with pristine white lights, Bentley cars gliding silently, and elegantly dressed couples emerging from restaurants, laughing as if the world belonged to them. Lily felt out of place, like an ink stain on white silk. She thought about the moment at La Stella, when she reached for the money clip, when she looked straight into James Cavendish's deep blue eyes and saw the cold judgment in them. She had been right to try to protect him, but he had looked at her like a thief. That injustice made her eyes sting, but she bit her lip hard, refusing to let tears fall. Not here, not in front of anyone. She had walked half a block, past a pastry shop with the scent of toasted almonds wafting from the window, when she heard footsteps behind her. Light, but steady, as if someone was deliberately keeping distance. The instinct of a girl living alone in London made Lily alert. Her hand slipped into her pocket, gripping the pepper spray Mia insisted she carry. She whipped around, heart pounding, ready to face any threat. But the person standing there wasn't a thief or a drunk. It was James Cavendish. He stood under the streetlight, a few steps away, wearing a long black overcoat, collar turned up, partially hiding his angular face. His hands were in his pockets, posture relaxed, but still exuding unmistakable power. His deep blue eyes, now not as icy as in the restaurant, looked at her with an inexplicable calm. Lily felt her body tense, a mix of anger and confusion. Hayim, the man who had just fired her without mercy, now standing in front of her on a deserted street at midnight. "Mr. Cavendish," she said, her voice stiff, trying to maintain dignity, though her heart was racing. "What do you want?" James didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, slowly, as if not wanting to startle her. When he stopped, the distance between them was only 2 meters, close enough for Lily to smell his cologne, a blend of sandalwood and bergamot, subtle and expensive. He pulled one hand from his pocket, holding a thick white envelope. "You forgot your tips from tonight's shift," he said, his voice even but without the judgmental edge. "Per restaurant policy, you're entitled to them, even though your contract has ended." Lily stared at the envelope, then back at James, searching for any sign of sarcasm or joke, but his face was serious, his eyes not leaving her. She took the envelope, her fingers briefly brushing his, a short moment, but enough to feel his warmth, in stark contrast to London's night cold. She opened it right there, under the streetlight, and nearly dropped it when she saw inside a stack of crisp 50-pound notes. At least £500, maybe more. "This isn't my tip money," she said immediately, her voice laced with anger. She quickly recalled, Tonight she had only served 3 tables. The highest tip, £15, from a French couple. I earned at most £40. You know that? James nodded slightly, as if anticipating her reaction. Consider it severance. Miss Harper, you tried to do the right thing, even if— He paused, choosing his words carefully, even if the way you did it wasn't by the book. Lily gripped the envelope, feeling like it was burning in her hand. She wanted to throw it back in his face, to scream that she didn't need his pity, that she wasn't a beggar. But £500 was a month's rent, a ticket back to Yorkshire, a chance to keep fighting in London. She looked at James, trying to read his true intent. Was this atonement, pity, or just a way to ease his conscience before forgetting her forever? You did it on purpose, didn't you? She asked, her voice low but sharp. The dozing off, the money clip, all of it. You're never careless. You set a trap to test us. James didn't deny it right away. He looked aside, his eyes scanning the sparse traffic on the street, as if weighing how much to reveal. Then he turned back, his eyes locking on hers. This Time, not judgmental, but with a rare sincerity. Trust is a luxury, Miss Harper, he said, his voice deep. I've learned that people often reveal their true nature when they think no one's watching. In my business, one small mistake can destroy an empire. I need to know what my staff will do when faced with temptation. Lily felt a wave of anger rise, but it was quickly replaced by deep disappointment. So, you'd rather put your staff in a position to fail than trust them? She asked, her voice trembling with emotion. You think honesty is something you can test, like a dish in the kitchen? James was silent for a moment, and in that instant, Lily saw a small crack in his steel wall. His eyes darkened, not from anger, but from something deeper, fatigue, perhaps, or the loneliness she had noticed from her first glance in the restaurant. Not everyone is honest, Miss Harper, he finally said, his voice so low it was almost carried away by the wind. I've seen too many people choose to take the money and run. But you— He paused, as if not wanting to finish the sentence. But me what? Lily pressed, stepping closer, despite the tension between them. I tried to protect you, and you fired me. If this is how you treat people who do the right thing, then I don't want to work for you. James looked at her, and for the first time, Lily saw real emotion in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or a hint of regret. You're not like the others, he said, his voice softer, almost a whisper. You chose to do the right thing, even knowing the cost could be high. That's why I'm here. Lily shook her head, not understanding. You're here to give me £500 and remind me I failed your test. No, James replied, his voice firmer. I'm here because you deserve to know you didn't fail. You just didn't do it the way I expected. Lily smirked, but the smile held no joy. What way did you expect? Stand by and watch your money get taken, or bow my head and pretend I saw nothing? James didn't answer immediately. He raised his hand, lightly rubbing his temple, a rare gesture showing he wasn't completely in control as he appeared. I should head back, he said, glancing toward La Stella, where light still warmly spilled from the windows. I hope you find a more suitable job, Miss Harper. London is harsh, but you seem like someone who knows how to survive. He turned away, his polished leather shoes stepping evenly on the sidewalk. Lily stood there, envelope still gripped in her hand, watching his back fade under the streetlights. She wanted to call Chaim back, to ask why he gave her so much money, why he followed her out here, why he looked at her as if she were a puzzle he hadn't solved. But she didn't call. She just stood in London's night cold, with £500 in hand and a confused heart. She didn't know that this moment, this brief encounter under the streetlight, had planted a seed that would change her life. And James, as he walked back into La Stella, didn't know that the girl from Yorkshire, with green eyes and unshakable honesty, had begun to seep into the steel walls he built around his heart. 3 days after the fateful night at La Stella, Lily Harper sat on an old wooden bench in Regent's Park, her thin coat not enough to keep out London's early winter chill. The job newspaper in her hand was crumpled from being flipped too many times, but the ads for waitstaff, no experience necessary, or bartender, starting wage £9, hour only made her more desperate. She had applied to 18 restaurants, 5 cafes, and 3 hotels in the past 72 hours, but only received 2 polite emails. "We will keep your resume on file." With the £500 from James Cavendish in her account money, she still hadn't decided whether to keep she had enough for this month's rent. But then what? The thought of calling her mother, Anne, and admitting London had defeated her made Lily feel suffocated. She was sipping a cheap black coffee from a nearby shop, trying to plan tomorrow, when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Lily hesitated, thinking of rejection calls from recruiters, but she answered. "Hello. Speaking." "Miss Lily Harper." The voice on the other end was professional, crisp, with a hint of aristocratic British accent. "This is Eleanor Price, HR assistant for Cavendish Hospitality Group. Mr. James Cavendish would like to meet you at the office at 3 p.m. today. Do you have TMA?" Lily nearly dropped her coffee. James Cavendish. The man who fired her without mercy, who looked at her like a thief, who gave her £500 and vanished into London's night. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Miss Harper," Eleanor repeated, her voice still polite but slightly impatient. "Aye, yes," Lily finally replied, her voice hoarse. "But about what?" "Mr. Cavendish didn't give details," Eleanor answered. "He just asked me to arrange the meeting. The address is Cavendish Tower, 1 Canary Wharf, 42nd floor. Security will be notified. Will you come?" Lily looked at the job newspaper. The park, with its bare oak trees, the future narrowing before her eyes. She didn't understand what James wanted, but part of her, the curious, proud part, didn't want to run. "He'll be there," she said, and the line was silent for a moment before Eleanor confirmed the TMA and hung up. Cavendish Tower in Canary Wharf was a towering glass and steel structure piercing London's sky, reflecting the heavy grey November clouds. Lily stood at the main entrance at 2:45, feeling like an ant before a castle. She had done her best to look professional, a simple black dress borrowed from Mia, high heels with scuffed toes, and her brown hair tied neatly. But stepping into the lobby with its gleaming marble floors, abstract paintings on the walls, and streams of perfectly tailored suit wearers, she felt more out of place than ever. Security, a middle-aged man with a stern face, checked her ID, gave her a visitor badge, and directed her to a private elevator bank. The elevator shot up to the 42nd floor so fast Lily's ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped into another world, wide hallways with floor-to-ceiling glass, panoramic views of the Thames and London's skyscrapers. Staff moved briskly, all dressed like they stepped from a fashion magazine, speaking in short, confident sentences. Lily felt like an intruder, even with the visitor badge on her chest as the only proof she was allowed. Eleanor Price, a woman around 40 with high-bunned black hair and an elegant grey suit, greeted her at the reception desk. "Miss Harper, please follow me." She led Lily through a series of glass offices, where employees typed on computers or spoke via Bluetooth headsets. At the end of the hall was a large oak door, No nameplate, just an electronic lock. Eleanor knocked lightly, opened it, and gestured for Lily to enter. "Miss Harper is here, sir," she said, then closed the door, leaving Lily alone with James Cavendish. James' office was vast, modern but not ostentatious. One side had floor-to-ceiling windows with a stunning view of London. The other had oak bookshelves holding hundreds of books on cuisine, business, and art. His walnut desk was meticulously neat, almost empty, with just a laptop, a leather-bound notebook, and a small silver-framed photo. Lily glimpsed an older man, likely James' father. But what caught her attention most was James High himself, standing with his back to her, looking out the window. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. No longer in the powerful suit from that night. No overcoat, no chandelier light. He looked less intimidating, but still exuded unmistakable control. "Thank you for coming, Miss Harper," he said without turning, his voice deep and clear. Lily stiffened, unsure how to respond. "Thanking me? After firing me?" She stood still, hands clutching her bag strap, waiting. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice stronger than she felt, though with a hint of wariness. "You made it clear I don't belong at La Stella." James turned, and for the first time, Lily saw Haim in daylight. His deep blue eyes were still sharp, but with a new softness, as if trying to restrain something. He pointed to the leather chair in front of the desk. "Please sit." Lily hesitated but sat, back straight, trying to maintain dignity. James sat opposite, arms crossed, and looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing every word. "I've been thinking about what you said that night," he began, his voice even but not cold. "About doing the right thing instead of following procedure. About people not being machines." He paused, his gaze scanning her, then continued. "I was wrong to fire you." Lily blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. James Cavendish, apologizing. She opened her mouth, but he raised a hand, signaling her to wait. "Let me finish. I run this empire with control. Miss Harper, every detail, every decision must be perfect. But that night, you reminded me that perfection sometimes loses. What's more important? People." Lily felt her heart race. She didn't know how to react, angry at what he had caused, or hopeful at these words. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice low but steady. "You want me back at La Stella?" James shook his head, and a small smile, the first she had seen from Haim, flickered on his lips. It made Haim look younger, more approachable, and Lily had to try not to let it distract her. "Not La Stella," he said. "I'm opening a new restaurant, The Hearth, in Shoreditch. A small, warm space focused on farm-fresh food and customer experience. I want it to be different, not just a restaurant, but a place that feels like home." He opened a file on the desk, flipping through a few pages. "I've reviewed your file. Associate degree in restaurant management, 4 years experience in Yorkshire, recommendation letters from every former boss. You're reliable, hardworking, and according to one pub manager named Mr. Thompson, you have excellent intuition with customers." James looked up, his eyes locking on hers. "I need someone like you to build the service procedures for The Hearth, not just following rules, but understanding the heart of customers." Lily was stunned. She had prepared for another rejection, or worse, an accusation from that night. But this offer a real opportunity, not just waitressing, left her reeling. "You want me to build procedures," she repeated, her voice tinged with doubt. After firing me for not following procedures, James chuckled lightly, this time more clearly, and Lily felt a strange warmth run through her. You're bad at following meaningless procedures, he said, his voice with a hint of teasing. But I bet you'd be excellent at creating meaningful ones. Ones that put people first. He slid a paper across the desk. Starting salary, 65,000 pounds per year, plus benefits and performance bonuses. You'll work directly with me for the next 3 months to develop the service model, recruit staff, and oversee the opening. After that, you'll be assistant general manager. Lily looked at the paper, then at James, searching for any sign of a joke or trap. But he was serious, his eyes surprisingly sincere. 65,000 pounds was 3 times what she ever earned in Yorkshire, enough to pay rent, send money to her mother, and truly build a life in London. But the offer also meant working closely with James Cavendish, the man who fired her, tested her, and now looked at her as if she were the key to his dream. Why me? She asked, her voice low but sharp. You have dozens of candidates with twice my experience. Why choose someone you just fired from your restaurant? James leaned back, arms crossed, and for the first TMA, Lily saw him hesitate. Because you think differently, he said slowly. Everyone in this industry, including me, sees a restaurant as a machine that needs perfect operation. You see it as a place to connect people. I need that for the hearth. I need you. The words hung in the air, and Lily felt her cheeks flush. She quickly looked down at the paper to hide her confusion. I have one condition, she said, looking up to meet his eyes. Honesty. If we work together, no tests, no games, just straightforwardness. James looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing the request. Then he nodded, the small smile appearing again, warmer. This time. Deal. I agree. He stood, walked around the desk, and extended his hand. Welcome to Cavendish Hospitality Group, Miss Harper. Lily shook his hand, feeling the strength and warmth in the grip. Call me Lily, she said, her voice firmer than she felt. If we're working together, I want us to start right. James repeated her name, Lily, and the way he said it slowly, as if savoring the sound, made her heart skip a beat. James, he said, and for the first teammate, he was no longer the cold billionaire or intimidating boss. He was just a man, with small cracks in his steel armor, extending his hand to invite her into his world. When Lily left the office 20 minutes later, contract in hand and mind spinning, she couldn't stop the smile spreading on her lips. She had come to London with a dream, and though it nearly shattered, now it was reviving, bigger and brighter than ever. Working with James Cavendish would be a challenge. He was a complex, controlling, mysterious man. But Lily Harper, the girl from Yorkshire, was ready to face it. The first week working with James Cavendish was a relentless whirlwind, pulling Lily Harper out of her comfort zone and throwing her into a world of precision, passion, and unexpected moments that made her heart beat faster than usual. She had imagined the new job involving meetings in conference rooms, dry PowerPoint slides, and perhaps some HR training sessions. But James, it turned out, didn't work conventionally. He operated on intuition, with an almost burning intensity, and he drew Lily into his world at a pace that left her both exhilarated and overwhelmed. The first day, Monday, started with a text at 5:55 a.m. Coffee at the Bean and Leaf, Soho, 6:30 a.m. Bring ideas on ideal customer experience. Lily, Still sleepy in her small Camden apartment, nearly dropped her phone. 6:30 a.m., she muttered, but dragged herself out of bed, threw on a dark green sweater and jeans, tied her hair in a messy bun, and rushed to the cafe on Time. The Bean and Leaf was a small but cozy coffee shop, with exposed brick walls and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee. James was already there, sitting at a corner table by the window, laptop open, 3 leather-bound notebooks spread across the table, and a black espresso in front of him. He wore a navy blue shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms with visible veins. When Lily walked in, he looked up, his deep blue eyes quickly but thoroughly scanning her, as if memorizing every detail. "You're on Time," he said, gesturing to the opposite chair. "Good. I ordered a cappuccino for you. That's what you drink, right?" Lily was stunned, sitting down with a question hanging in her mind. "How did you know?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. James shrugged, a rare casual gesture. "I pay attention." Just 3 words, but they made her feel seen through. She quickly hid her confusion by sipping the cappuccino. It was exactly her type, with smooth milk foam and a sprinkle of cinnamon on top. For the next 2 hours, they talked, not about contracts or schedules, but about experience. James wanted to know what Lily thought made a perfect meal, not as an employee, but as a diner. "What makes a moment in a restaurant memorable?" he asked, pen flying across his notebook, eyes not leaving her. Lily hesitated, but then opened up, telling about the Red Lion pub in Yorkshire, where the owner, Mr. Thompson, remembered every customer's name and always kept a plate of homemade cookies on the counter. She talked about how her mother, Anne, once took her to a small roadside diner, where the smell of baked goods and the chef's laughter made her feel at home. "It's not about expensive food," she said, her voice deep with memory. "It's about feeling welcomed." James listened, without interrupting, without checking his phone. He nodded, took notes, and sometimes asked questions that made her think deeper. When does attention to detail become invasive? How to make a fine dining restaurant still feel intimate? Lily found herself saying more than intended, passion flowing as she described a place where diners didn't just eat, but felt they belonged. "That's what's missing in high-end restaurants," James said, closing his notebook, his eyes lighting up with new determination. "We impress them, but we don't make them feel welcomed. The hearth will be different. It will be home, just a home with amazing food and wine." Lily smiled, for the first time feeling like they were aligned on a goal. "So you need to start with the staff," she said. "They're the ones who create that feeling. You can't force staff to be warm if you treat them like machines." James looked at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. "You're right," he finally said, his voice deep. "That's why I'm giving you the recruitment task. Find people who understand this isn't just serving, but connecting." Lily blinked, surprised at the level of trust he placed in her. "That's a big responsibility," she said, "especially for someone you fired 2 weeks ago." James smiled, a real smile, softening the strong lines on his face. "I'm learning to trust Lily, at least with the right people." The following days were a series of early mornings at different cafes, from a patisserie in Covent Garden to a small spot by the Thames, and afternoons in Shoreditch, where the hearth was under construction. The restaurant space was a renovated old warehouse, with exposed brick walls, high vaulted ceilings, and large windows overlooking the colorful, artistic street. Lily loved it from first sight, raw but full of potential, like an unpolished gem. They worked with designers, arguing over everything. Lily wanted warm lighting, loose-hanging Edison bulbs for intimacy. James, with his controlling instinct, initially insisted on modern, sharp LED lights. "It's efficient," he said, pointing to the drawings. "It highlights the space." "But it's cold," Lily countered, standing in the middle of the warehouse with plans in hand. "Customers don't want to feel like they're in a gallery. They want to feel at home." They argued, voices sometimes rising, but gradually found a rhythm, led with warm bulbs. James proposed one afternoon, as they stood under the warehouse ceiling, brick dust falling around them. "Keeps the modern style, but softens the atmosphere." Lily nodded, smiling, "And cushions for the wooden chairs, modern but comfortable." James looked at her, the rare smile appearing. "We're learning to compromise." But it wasn't just work that made Lily feel like walking a tightrope. There were other moments, small but powerful, that confused her. When reviewing menu designs, James' hand accidentally brushed hers, and he didn't pull away immediately, letting his warmth linger longer than necessary. When walking through Shoreditch after a long day, he slowed his stride to match hers, though his long legs could easily outpace her, and sometimes she caught him looking at her when he thought she wasn't noticing, his gaze no longer the boss's evaluation, but a man's curiosity, almost longing, trying to understand something beyond reach. Lily told herself it was just work, proximity, that her racing heart was only from pressure. James was her boss, a billionaire in a different world, and he still kept an invisible distance. Steel walls she had only begun to see cracks in, but every team he said her name, Lily, instead of Miss Harper, his voice deep and slow, as if savoring the sound. She felt an unquenchable spark of hope. The first kiss between them was not gentle. It was intense, hungry as if both had been holding back for too long. James' lips were warm, powerful, but also tender, as if he feared breaking her. Lily gripped his coat tightly, pulling Chaim closer, feeling his heartbeat pounding under her hand. They stood there in the middle of bustling Shoreditch, forgetting the world around them. The music from a nearby bar, the laughter of passers-by, the flickering neon lights, all faded away, leaving only them. When they finally pulled apart, their breaths mingling in the cold air, James looked at her, his eyes both surprised and desirous. "Lily," he repeated this, time like a plea. "This is complicated." "I know," she replied, her voice trembling but firm. "But I don't want to stop." James smiled a real smile with no defenses left. He pulled her into a tight embrace as if afraid she would vanish. "Neither do I," he whispered into her hair, and Lily felt as if the whole world had changed in that moment. When the taxi took her back to Camden later, Lily sat by the window watching London's lights pass by, her lips still tingling from James' kiss. She knew they were stepping into dangerous territory. He was her boss, a man with a complicated past, and walls not fully crumbled. But she also knew deep down that she had found something rare. A man who saw her not just as Lily Harper from Yorkshire, but as someone who could change Chaim as he was changing her. James, in his Mayfair penthouse, stood by the window overlooking the city, his hand still feeling the sensation of Lily's skin. He knew he had broken every rule of his own, never let emotions take over, never let anyone get close. But with Lily he didn't want to stop. She was the flame he didn't know he needed, and for the first time in years, James Cavendish was ready to take a risk. After the kiss under the Shoreditch streetlight, the world of Lily Harper and James Cavendish was no longer the same. The following days were a complex dance between passion and restraint, between sudden, intimate moments, and the invisible walls both still erected to protect their hearts. The hearth, the restaurant gradually taking shape in Shoreditch, became the stage for their bond, but also the place where conflicts erupted when love and work intertwined in unpredictable ways. Monday morning, just 3 days after the night at Spicehaven, Lily arrived at the Hearth's temporary office, a repurposed container on the construction site, with her heart racing and mind reeling. She had spent the entire weekend analyzing that kiss, wondering if it was a spontaneous moment or a sign of something deeper. James, as her boss, still held the power to fire her as the man who had just kissed her passionately. He was an enigma that made her both crave and fear. She wore a white blouse and black trousers, trying to look professional, but every step into the container felt heavy, as if she were walking into a battle with an unknown outcome. James was already there, standing by a large table covered in blueprints, sample menus, and interior fabric swatches. He wore a dark gray sweater, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms, and his black hair slightly tousled, a rare sign that he wasn't fully in control as usual. When Lily entered, he looked up, and his deep blue eyes locked onto hers, both warm and cautious. "Good morning, Lily," he said, his voice low but with a hint of tension, as if he, too, was struggling with himself. "Good morning," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, though her heart was pounding wildly. The air in the container was heavy, as if the Shoreditch kiss was hanging between them, neither daring to mention it. They quickly dove into work, discussing the experimental menu, selecting organic vegetable suppliers, and outlining staff training procedures. But every time, their hands accidentally brushed when pointing at a blueprint, or every time their eyes met for too long. Lily felt an electric current run through her. James, despite trying to focus, couldn't hide his distraction. He rubbed his temple more often, and once when Lily suggested adding a traditional Yorkshire dessert to the menu, he smiled too long, as if looking at her instead of listening. The truly intimate moments came in the late hours when the Hearth's warehouse was empty, leaving only them and the experimental Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. One Friday evening, after the design team had left, Lily and James stayed to check the table layout. The warehouse now resembled a restaurant. The exposed brick walls, cleaned the polished oak floors, and wooden tables placed temporarily for testing. Lily stood in the middle of the space, spinning slowly, imagining how guests would feel upon entering. "It's coming alive," she said, her voice low with emotion. "It has soul, James." He stood a few steps away, hands in pockets, eyes never leaving her. "Thanks to you," he said, his voice low and sincere. "You brought the soul here, Lily. Not just the ideas. You." She turned, catching his gaze, and in that moment, all barriers vanished. James walked over slowly but decisively, and before she could think, he pulled her into his arms. Their second kiss was more intense than the first, as if both had been holding back for too long. Lily gripped his sweater tightly, feeling his heartbeat pounding under her hand, and he kissed her with a hunger that left her dizzy. His hands glided down her back gently but meaningfully, and when they pulled apart, their breaths mingling, he whispered into her hair, "I can't stop thinking about you." Lily's face flushed hot, trying to regain composure. "This is a bad idea, James," she said, her voice trembling but not pulling away. "You're my boss. If we—" "I know," he interrupted, his voice hoarse, his hands still holding her waist tightly. "But I don't care about the rules anymore. Not when it comes to you." He leaned down, kissing her forehead lightly, a tender gesture contrasting the earlier intensity, and Lily felt her heart melt. But their love was not just romantic moments in dim light. It was tested by the harsh reality of work and the outside world. The hearth was approaching its soft opening and the pressure was mounting. James, with his controlling instincts, some at times reverted to Ice King mode. When a supplier delivered vegetables 2 days late, he called with a cold voice, threatening to cancel the contract. When Lily suggested discounting some dishes to attract local guests, he dismissed it immediately, insisting that the hearth must be premium but approachable. Their arguments, though starting from work, often ended in tense silence, and Lily began to wonder if she could love a man still struggling to let go of control. One afternoon, after a long meeting with investors, James returned to the warehouse with a tense face. A major investor, Mr. An. Victor Lang had demanded menu changes to focus on international dishes instead of local ingredients, threatening to pull funding if James didn't agree. Lily was arranging sample napkins, immediately noticing his mood. "What happened?" she asked, placing a hand on his shoulder. James shook his head, rubbing his temple. "They want to turn the Hearth into another chain restaurant," he said, his voice full of disappointment. "They don't understand our vision. Yours." Lily pulled Chaim to sit on a wooden chair, kneeling in front of Chaim, so their eyes were level. "They don't need to understand," she said, her voice firm. "We do, and the guests will. You didn't build the Hearth to please investors. You built it to create something special. Don't let them take that from you." James looked at her, his eyes softening, and he grasped her hand, squeezing tightly. "You always know how to pull me back," he said, his voice low. "I don't deserve you, Lily." She smiled, shaking her head. "We deserve each other. Just believe it." Beyond work, the outside world also began to notice them. Rumors spread in the culinary industry that James Cavendish was dating a new employee at the Hearth. An article in London Gourmet published a blurry photo of them leaving the warehouse hand in hand with the headline, "Ice King melts for mysterious girl." The Hearth's staff, though fond of Lily, started whispering, and Eleanor Price, James' assistant, sent an email reminding about the internal no-dating policy. James brushed off all criticism, but Lily felt the pressure. She didn't want to be seen as the billionaire's girl. She wanted recognition for her talent. One evening, when they dined at James Mayfair penthouse, a vast space with windows overlooking the Thames and minimalist yet luxurious interior, Lily confronted Chaim. "Everyone is talking about us," she said, setting down her wine glass. "They think I'm here because of you, not because of the Hearth. I need to know what we're doing, James. Is this love, or just a moment?" James stood walking around the table and kneeling before her, taking her hands. "This is love," he said, his voice certain but full of emotion. "I've never felt this way, Lily. Not with anyone. You're not just the person who makes me laugh or pulls me from the work abyss. You're the one who makes me want to live, not just exist." Lily felt tears welling, but she smiled. "Then we'll face them," she said. "Together. But you have to promise not to control me. I'm not your employee when we're here. I'm Lily, your girlfriend." James nodded, pulling her into a tight hug. "I promise," he whispered, and for the first time, Lily believed he would really try. The soft opening day of the Hearth approached, and Lily, with James, worked non-stop. But they found joy in the chaos. They tasted dishes with the chef, laughing loudly when James spilled sauce on his shirt, and together stood in the restaurant at night, imagining how guests would feel. Every hand touch, every glance, every stolen kiss in a warehouse corner was proof of their love, an imperfect but real and intense love. But Lily knew deep down that the real challenges were still ahead. James still carried scars from the past, and the outside world would not stop testing them. Would their love be strong enough to overcome, or would it be crushed under the pressure of the Cavendish empire and unattainable expectations? Only Time would tell. But for the first Time, Lily was ready to face anything as long as James was by her side. Just 3 days before, the Hearth's soft opening and the atmosphere in Shoreditch was like a red-hot steel forge. The old warehouse had now transformed into a masterpiece. Exposed brick walls, accented with local art, polished oak tables under warm Edison lights, and a brass bar gleaming with dozens of artisanal wine bottles. The scent of toasted herb bread, fresh herbs, and slow-roasted meat wafted from the open kitchen where the chef team, led by head chef Marcus, a gaunt man with scarred hands, conducted like an orchestra. But behind that perfect beauty, a storm was forming, and Lily Harper and James Cavendish were standing right at its center. Tuesday morning, Lily arrived at the restaurant at 6 a.m. Eyes ringed from lack of sleep. She had spent the night finalizing the 40-page staff training manual, detailing everything from greeting guests, a real smile, not a service smile, to handling complaints. Listen first, resolve later. James had been there since 5 a.m., inspecting every wine glass under light for the tiniest scratch. He wore a black shirt, sleeves rolled high, his face tense with sharper lines than usual. "We have 120 booked guests," he said without looking up, his voice even but ice-cold. 3 food critics, 2 influential bloggers, and Victor Lang with his investment group. One mistake, Lily. Just one, and everything turns to smoke. Lily set the document stack on the bar, trying to stay calm, though the pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders. "We're prepared," she said, her voice firm. "Staff trained for 3 weeks. Experimental menu perfect. Marcus and the kitchen team ready. Well, do it, James." He finally looked up, his deep blue eyes locking onto hers. "You're sure?" he asked, his voice low but full of doubt. "Because if we fail, it's not just the hearth. It's my reputation. Ours." Those words hit like a punch. Lily felt hot blood rise. "Ours," she repeated, her voice higher than intended. "This isn't just your reputation, James. I've poured my heart into this. I've given up sleep, friends, everything to build this place with you. Don't make it just about you." James stiffened his hand, gripping the glass so tight his knuckles turned white. "You think I don't know that?" he replied, his voice now laced with anger. "You think I don't see you working yourself to exhaustion, but this is my world, Lily. One mistake, and I lose everything. I can't let emotions get in the way." The final sentence hung in the air, and Lily felt slapped. Emotions. Their love, was being seen as a burden. She turned away, hiding welling tears, and dove into work, checking tables, directing staff, anything to avoid facing him. James realized had gone too far, tried calling her back, but she ignored him, and the day passed in tense silence. That evening, while Lily was at the bar helping the bartender test new cocktails, a woman entered the restaurant. She was tall, slim, with gleaming blonde hair tied high, and a tight red dress exuding the confidence of someone used to flashbulbs. The receptionist, a young girl named Amira, ran to report to Lily. "Someone named Vanessa Hart wants to meet Mr. James. She says she's an old friend." The name made Lily freeze. Vanessa Hart, the famous food journalist who dated James 3 years ago, who wrote a scathing article about the Cavendish Empire after the breakup. Lily had never met her, but stories about Vanessa, her charm, ambition, and how she left James when he refused. A marriage proposal had become industry whispers. James was in the kitchen with Marcus stepped out upon hearing the news. His face darkened upon seeing Vanessa, but he quickly regained control. "Vanessa," he said, his voice flat. "What do you want?" Vanessa smiled, a smile sharp as a knife. "Just to congratulate you on the new restaurant, James, and meet the one who replaced me." Her eyes swept over Lily, appraising from head to toe, and Lily felt stripped bare. "She's young," Vanessa said, her voice sweet but sarcastic. "Hope she's strong enough to handle you." Lily clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, but she stood straight, not letting Vanessa see her waver. "Thanks for the concern," she said, her voice cold. "But I don't need to replace anyone. I'm Lily Harper, and the hearth is mine as much as James." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Lily's firmness, but she quickly turned back to James. "I hear you're taking a big risk with this place," she said, her voice low but loud enough for the restaurant to hear. "Hope it doesn't collapse like the last TMA. We tried something different." Those words were a blow. Lily knew James had failed with a restaurant in Dubai, a project he poured millions into before closing after 6 months. Vanessa was reopening an old wound, and Lily saw James stiffen, his eyes darkening with a pain he rarely showed. "Enough," James said, his voice ice cold. "Leave, Vanessa. You're not welcome." Vanessa shrugged, turning away with a victorious smile, but not before tossing back. Call me when she disappoints you, James. I'm still here. When the door closed, the restaurant was silent as a grave. Lily turned to James, wanting to comfort him, but he had already turned, striding quickly into the temporary office, slamming the door. She stood there, her heart aching, wondering if Vanessa was right, if she was strong enough to be with James, or if she was just a passing moment in his life. The next morning, an article in the London Post exploded James Cavendish and the mysterious employee, love or PR stunt for the hearth. The article included photos of Lily and James leaving the warehouse hand in hand with distorted details about the Yorkshire girl climbing, thanks to her looks. The hearth's social media accounts flooded with comments, some supportive but more criticizing Lily as a gold digger or arm candy. Eleanor Price James' assistant sent an urgent email requesting a media strategy to quash the rumors. Lily read the article in her Camden apartment, feeling stabbed in the heart. She never wanted fame, she just wanted recognition for her talent. But now all of London was judging her, and she feared James, with his instinct to protect his empire, would retreat to avoid scandal. She arrived at the hearth early, preparing to confront him. But James was already there, standing in the middle of the restaurant with a PR team. Well, issue a statement, he said, his voice hard. Lily is a key partner in the hearth. Our relationship is private, but doesn't affect the restaurant. Lily stepped forward, interrupting. No, she said, her voice firm though her heart pounded. Don't hide me, James. If we're a couple, let them know. I'm not your employee anymore. I'm your girlfriend, and I'm proud of the hearth. Let's face them together. James looked at her, his eyes wavering between surprise and pride. You're sure? He asked, his voice low. They won't stop. They'll dig into everything about you, about us. I'm not afraid, Lily replied, grasping his hand. I'm more afraid of losing you. The night before opening, Lily and James stayed at the restaurant until 2 a.m., checking every final detail. Staff had gone, leaving only them and the tick of the wine cooling system. Lily, exhausted, sat on the bar counter, legs dangling, holding a cup of chamomile tea. James stood nearby, jacket off, white shirt, unbuttoned too, revealing sharp collarbone. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, his voice hoarse. About yesterday. About Vanessa. About pushing you away. I am scared, Lily. Scared of failure, scared of losing you, scared everything I've built will collapse. Lily set the tea down, slid off the bar, and stood before Chaim. You can't control everything, she said, placing a hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. But you have me, and I have you. The hearth will succeed not because it's perfect, but because we put our hearts into it. Together. James looked at her, his eyes softening, and he pulled her into a tight embrace, as if she were the only anchor keeping Chaim from sinking. I don't deserve you, he whispered, kissing her hair lightly, but I'll spend my life trying. They stood there in the restaurant, not yet officially open, Edison lights shining on them like a promise. Lily knew tomorrow would be the biggest test, guests, critics, and the world waiting to see them fail. But with James in her arms, she felt invincible. The soft opening day of the hearth arrived like a perfect storm, chaotic, beautiful, and uncontrollable. Shoreditch on Friday evening glowed under neon, but inside the restaurant, warm Edison light and the aroma of toasted herb bread, fresh herbs, and slow-roasted meat created a space both intimate and grand. Lily Harper stood at the host, stand in a fitted emerald silk dress, a surprise gift from James delivered to her apartment that morning with a short note. You'll shine tonight, Jay. She felt her heart pounding, not just from the pressure of 120 guests pouring in, but because she knew James was somewhere in the restaurant, watching, trusting, and loving her. 6:30 p.m. The main doors opened, and the crowd began to flood in. The staff, Lily had trained for 3 weeks, moved like a perfectly conducted orchestra, real smiles, welcoming eyes, and personalized greetings. "Welcome to the hearth. Mr. Thompson, your table is in the corner by the fireplace as requested." Amira, the receptionist, led an elderly couple to their table, while other servers glided by with appetizer cocktail trays, a local herb-infused gin named Shoreditch Bloom. Lily stood at the center, eyes scanning every detail, a misplaced wine glass corrected instantly, a guest waiting over 5 minutes, offered a free samosa plate, and a child spilling water handled with a smile and a clean napkin. She felt like conducting a ship in a storm, but every passing moment proved her training manual wasn't just paper, it was the hearth's heart. James, in a perfectly tailored gray suit, emerged from the kitchen, where he had checked the final mains with Chef Marcus. He paused beside Lily, his hand lightly touching her lower back, a small but meaningful gesture amid the crowd. "You did it," he whispered, his voice low and warm. "Look at them. They're falling in love with this place." Lily smiled, but her eyes scanned the crowd for potential threats. Victor Lang, the major investor, had arrived, seated at the central table with 3 others, his sharp eyes sweeping the restaurant. 3 food critics, one from The Guardian, one from Team Out, and a blogger, nicknamed The Fork, jotting on an iPad. And in the far corner, Vanessa Hart, though uninvited, sat with a wine glass, a sarcastic smile on her lips. Lily clenched her fists, determined not to let anyone ruin the night. 8:15 p.m. A small crisis occurred. A guest, a middle-aged businessman drunk loudly, complained that his roasted cod with lemon butter sauce was too bland. His voice carried attracting attention from nearby tables. Lily, nearby, I immediately approached her, smile, unwavering. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said, her voice warm but professional. "Let me bring a new one right away, and please accept a complimentary wine from our cellar." She signaled the server, and within 3 minutes, a new cod plate, personally seasoned by Marcus, with sea salt and herbs, was placed before the guest. He initially grumpy tasted it, nodded, satisfied, and even ordered another bottle. James, watching from afar, raised an eyebrow in surprise and pride. He stepped over, whispering in Lily's ear, "You just saved the night, and maybe my reputation." But the bigger challenge came at 9 p.m. when Victor Lang called James to the table. Lily, standing near the bar, overheard the conversation. "This place is beautiful," Victor said, his voice smooth but cold, "but it's not international enough. I want menu changes before pouring more capital, or, well, have issues." James stiffened, but before he could respond, Lily stepped over, placing a hand on his shoulder, a public gesture, silencing the table. "Mr. Lang," she said, her voice firm but polite, "the Hearth isn't an international restaurant. It's the home of Shoreditch of London, of people like Mr. Sayers Thompson over there, who ate here when he was a boy. We won't change the menu. We invite you to enjoy it, and if you don't, the door is always open." The table fell silent. Victor looked at Lily, then James, and finally laughed loudly, an unexpected sound. "This girl has guts," he said, raising his glass. "All right, James, I'll give you a shot, but don't disappoint me." James squeezed Lily's hand under the table, his eyes sparkling with pride. "You just stood up to the most powerful man in the industry," he whispered as they left the table. "And you won." 10:30 p.m. The restaurant hit its peak. Guests laughing, wine glasses clinking, and soft acoustic music from a local band playing in the corner. The Guardian critic scribbled non-stop. The Fork blogger posted photos of the slow-roasted Wagyu beef with truffle mashed potatoes on Instagram with the caption, "This is the restaurant of the year." Vanessa Hart, realizing she was overshadowed, left early without a word. Lily, exhausted but exhilarated, stood at the kitchen door looking out over the space. Every table full, every staff member shining, and guests lining up for no-shows. She felt tears welling not from fatigue but from pride. The hearth wasn't just a restaurant. It was her dream, Jameis, and everyone's who poured heart into it. James appeared beside her, jacket off white shirt, unbuttoned hair falling over his forehead. He pulled her into a secluded corner near the bar where dim light hid them from the crowd. "Lily," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "you did the impossible. You turned my dream into reality. But more, you gave me a home." She looked at him, her eyes sparkling. "We did it, James. Together." He leaned down, kissing her right in the restaurant, not caring who saw. That kiss wasn't intense, like in Shoreditch, but deep, slow, like a promise. When they pulled apart, applause erupted from a nearby table. Mr. Thompson, the elderly guest, grinning widely. "Marry her, James," he shouted, and the whole restaurant laughed, raising glasses in toast. 2 a.m. When the last guest left and staff cleaned, Lily and James sat on an oak table, legs dangling, sharing a leftover wine bottle. The restaurant silent, only the fireplace crackle and dim Edison lights. Lily's emerald silk dress, wrinkled hair tousled but face radiant. James, shirt open, gazed at her as if she were his world. "Tomorrow, all London will talk about us," he said, raising his glass. "But tonight, it's just us." Lily clinked glasses, smiling. "And the hearth. It's alive, James. It has a heart." He nodded, set his glass down, and knelt before her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Lily froze as he opened it, revealing a white gold ring with a small emerald, the color of her eyes. "Lily Harper," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "you changed me, changed everything. I thought I knew about life. I don't promise perfection, but I promise to love you, fight for you, and build a home with you, whether at the hearth or anywhere. Will you marry me?" Lily, tears streaming down her cheeks, nodded before speaking. "Yes," she whispered, pulling Haim into a hug. "1,000,000 times, yes." They kissed under the Edison lights in the restaurant that had become their home, and Lily knew this wasn't just the hearth's victory. It was the victory of love, of trust, and of two people who found each other in life's storm. The next morning, reviews flooded social media and press. The Guardian called the hearth London's heart restaurant. The Fork declared it redefining fine dining, and even the London Post, once critical of Lily, published an apology, headlined Lily Harper, the brain behind the hearth. Victor Lang sent a congratulatory email committing more funding. Vanessa Hart went silent, and rumors faded. Lily and James, hand in hand, stood before the restaurant in the morning light, looking at the gleaming, the hearth sign under the sun. "We did it," Lily said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "No," James replied, kissing her hair. "You did it, and I'll spend my life thanking you."